Is that picked up?
Hello, welcome back to another episode of our Mega-lo-Mania in Unreal Engine. It's been quite a few days, but I have managed to do a few little bits and pieces, but unfortunately they're not quite complete. They didn't quite work out, so I will be continuing with that. So last episode we worked on getting the, let's see if we can play, pick the right level, getting the armies to display on the map and being able to move them around. That still works, and there's still a few bits of improvements to make to that regards to merging the armies when they're on the same sector, but the bit that I was kind of trying to improve was the display of those armies on the map, so we can ignore that one now. So as I say, the armies still appear, but they're not working on the map now, and obviously if that's the case you can't see them move around. Now what I was trying to do was to allow the army to blink, or the army icon on the map to blink, and the problem that I had was that on each of the update calls within our section, well actually the update call is done within the map. So the map was calling this update function, which was calling the toggle army. And the toggling army function was unfortunately resetting the animation. So I've created an animation for the blinking, so we can check that on the sector here. So I've set up for the blink army 1, blink army 2, 3 and 4 and the center. Excuse me. And I've actually named them all the different things because the particular army icons only show up at certain corners all the time anyway. So this little animation simply just changes the visibility property of the actual army themselves. So it starts off at hidden, it should then go visible and then hidden again. It's not, doesn't look, oh yeah, it's about right now. Just have to select the right things. So we start off in visible, then we go hidden, and then we go visible, and that happens over 2 seconds. So if we were to run that, we can see that the particular image here will blink. Now that has to do that when the army is selected by the player, and it's only relevant to the current player. So it's only the current player's one that would blink, obviously. And as I say, unfortunately we initiate that animation with this play animation, but if we call the play animation again before the animation has begun or even is running, then it restarts it and effectively ended up with a constant icon being visible. So what I've got to try and do is have this toggle army function work without kind of attempting to redisplay things. So I've been moving around a bit. We're now tying up the specific characters to specific army images, and we're saying that they're visible. So that should... We're also utilising the... well, we will be using the event tick. What I was trying to do was tie up the showing and hiding of icons based on events that the sector could trigger. But the problem is with the multiplayer replication, particularly with the spawning of armies. The army was spawned, not replicated over, so the icon couldn't display correctly because the event was fired without an army, and so on and so forth. Issues that I've had before. So I'm going to ignore that part of it. Even though that part is kind of working for the castle, but as you can see, we have the castle constructed, but we also still have to have a special case for castles that exist at the beginning of the game, because again the replication happens in the wrong order and the event doesn't fire. It's particularly annoying, so I'm not particularly keen with this event. It seems like a good idea, but it's just so unreliable trying to get the UI to work on events, at least events that relate to actors being created. Seems to be a problem. So we'll leave that one tied up because that does at least work for the castle. So for the event tick for the sector section, get all actors. So we need to get all the army actors. Now, as I say, we've only got 4 images, and we're only going to show 4 images now. We don't need that, do we? We need the armies of this sector. And really for this, all we're going to need to do is call toggle army and pass in the army. So from this perspective, that should be all that's required. Now the toggle army, we first need to validate our army now. That's not going to happen. No, one thing that we have to do though is have to hide them all. I'm just wondering if we can hide all the army images. Let's try that first. I wonder if we hide all the army images on the first. No, we don't really want to hide them all though. It's a problem. We've got 4 armies and we've got 4 icons. We need to make sure that the right icons are shown for the right armies, and the icons are removed when an army doesn't exist. Now we could use the event to remove the armies. That might work because the armies still are there. So we have an army exited. I put in place. We have an army entered. If we do it that way, then we can just iterate over all the armies as we are here and toggle the army. We don't know what the colour is though. Basically want to do it like this. So given this is the toggle army function, we will so if it is visible, we want to set it invisible, and if it's not visible, we want to make it visible. So that'll at least work with the toggling, but it's going to put us back in the situation we were originally. We'll see if the exited works. What else do we need to do? See if that works. I think that might do something useful. Okay, so yeah, okay, so basically every frame it's coming into the function and toggling the image, which is causing it to flicker. Actually, we'll just see if that does move over. Kind of. I think I must have moved it when it was not shown. Yeah, so that's just kind of working sometimes by accident. Okay, so how are we going to... The exited's not working. Not really sure why. That should work. That's been put in at the player controller. I think it's the player controller where we move the army. Yeah, so we've moved the army here. So this is inside the sector we call army entered and army exited. But we might be doing that on the server, which means they're actually not being called or bound up properly. Don't know really. Not really sure why they're not working. But I don't think that's going to work in the long run anyway, because even the first one's always going to be a bit of a problem. So what we need to do don't need those. So I think the only way to do this is we need all of these in a map. So we'll take all the images. So I need to make sure that when they're on, they stay on and they don't flicker like they are doing. So create a map. That way we don't have to do so the map we can use to show or hide the icons. So we use that with the player name. Don't think we actually need the local variable, so we'll take that out for now. The map here should be fine. And then we can get keys. What I'm trying to do here is boil it down so that we have 4 Boolean values of whether the so that's what we could do with this. So let's do that in a bit. So in this case we want to a sector. Get the armies. Then we have to get the player, and on that we'll set a Boolean value in here. I mean, that said, it might just be easier to have 4 Booleans. Just because it's just going to be a little bit obscure if we use the map, whereas this way it's going to be very clear. Put spaces in there. Normally put spaces in the variables. So we want to set these 4 variables depending on what army is in here, and then since they're local they all start as false. So we want to get the owner of the army, cast it to a player controller for the player, and then get the character. And then using that character, we can switch on the name. I suppose actually that does mean that yeah, if I do it with the booleans, I'm actually going to have to write like 4 times as much code. Let's do it this way instead. A bit lost there. So all we need to do is set the boolean in here. Assume it's going to return me a reference. Doesn't look like a reference though, does it? So that's going to be setting the appropriate boolean value to true or false. It's at least our first step. And once we've done that, we then want to set our items in the map, or use the map actually to always use this one. Keys. So we'll loop over all the keys in the player army's Boolean value. Then from that we can get the value. And we also have to find it from that. If the Boolean is true or false, to show or hide it. If it's true, set visibility to true, and if it's false, we can set visibility to hidden. Now what we can do is, because at the moment that's going to work exactly the same as before, it's going to cause it to flicker. I suppose we could just quickly check that. Yeah, so it still flickers, but what we can do now is get the visibility from here and I don't know if there's a compare. No. Not equal. So now, if the visibility is not the same as the visibility currently is, then we will change it. Now that should stop it flickering. No. Why did that not stop? I suppose let's first check. Well, I won't be using the new function, will it? That's why. Need army variable. Actually, no, we don't need an army variable in this one. That's why it works. We just call it here. Don't see anything happening. Okay. does show get here eventually. I think that's just not setting it by reference. And the player army is completely empty, which it shouldn't be. Yes, did not set it. See if that works any better. So we have some Boolean values now. Yeah, they're just all false. So I think I have to set it in a different way. Do add instead. So rather than find, we will add that name as true. That seems a bit nicer anyway. Okay, so that should at least give me a true value. Move that until we make whole army. First sector we want, so that one. Nope, they're still all false. Okay, so we do have a true value now. So it's not visible. And we're checking scarlet, so that should be red. That's not. Okay. Breakpoint there instead. What have we got now? Oh. Okay, so Caesar is true. Ah, so it set visibility is. I set that on the wrong thing. Need to set there too. I was setting the visibility to the sector icon itself. Obviously, isn't going to make any difference. Okay, now we see it, and that worked. Okay, so we still get two armies on a sector, but that's the next problem. Or the next one problem. The next one I want to do is make that blink if it's active. So how are we going to do that to make sure that we only do it for the current player's icon? So we can display the icon correctly, but we need to set the animation. So the animation is done with this play animation, and we provide it with an animation, and that animation references correctly the image that we are showing. But within this function, only here do we know which army we're working on, and we're setting a Boolean value accordingly. Problem is we kind of need more than just two states. We need, if it's active or not, needs to be a separate one. That's the only way I can think of doing it. Ooh. I say the problem is we've lost the context of the army by the time we get to whether we should be displaying it or not. I suppose what we could do is get so we get the player controller for the for this UI, get their character. If their character matches the name that we're currently working on, then we can also get active army. Yeah, the problem is the active army needs to be mapped to this set here. That check is what we're going to need to do anyway. Over here. And once we've got that army, compare that to our array element. So that tells us whether this one's active or not. If it is active, we can have a new name for active army owner, which we can set here. Do this bit afterwards. Do this bit before. That one up so I can get it straight. So now we know the name of the active army. Rather than doing that, we can compare against the active army. That means if this one is the active army, go branch again here. Switch these around. If it is active, not active. Might just be it. So that's has a state changed? That should it be shown? That should it be blinking? Okay, that didn't quite work. Do we ever get to that? No. So play controller, active army, replicate to the owner. Active sector. Okay, see if that helps. Yep, we go into the set now. Didn't quite work. Let's try again. Make an army, right click. No, it seems to, when I move it, not work at all. I didn't set the animation. Problem with the animation is it's all tied with so it's all tied to a particular icon. Animation we want, given the player is number 4, so we'll just tie that in for now. I guess we're just not getting here. Ah, because the state doesn't change. It doesn't blink because the state isn't changing. This part here is basically stopping it. That kind of means the only way I can think of doing this is setting the state to be, rather than a boolean here, to be one of three things. So rather than setting it here to be true, false to show it, and an active army name here, we set three values. Okay, let's do it that way instead then. An army object, yeah. So what we can do just to shortcut that in the army is have a function get player controller. So just shortcut the getting and the casting. Cast to MNL play controller. We won't take the success. What we'll do is just call return twice. Convert that to an impure so we can go down that route. That means back over here, and we're likely going to be doing it a lot with the we'll do it with the castle reference here as well, so we'll add it there. But now we can just call get player controller. That needs to be pure itself, so the function needs to be pure. But now we don't need our owner or the cast. We can just tie those together. Makes that a bit cleaner. So instead of a boolean set there, I'm just going to go for a name. And effectively we'll have it 3 times. So by default, again I have to add all these in. So the name's just going to be one of 3 values, none, which means the icon shouldn't be shown, visible and active. So by default it's none, and then depending on this one here, this branch says is it the active army, we might do that again in some kind of function for the widgets at a later point. So this one checks is it the active army. If it's not the active army, we just want to add that name as a key and the value as visible. Otherwise we add that name as a key. Let's get rid of that. Don't know why I can't set that one. Maybe it needs to this one's allowing me to set the value of the value. Okay, that one worked. Maybe I just needed to make it again. Active. So that means we've got our 3 states. Now all we need to do is do that one instead. Find in that one. Switch on the name. So we don't care about it changing anymore because this state's going to be valid for all the appropriate things. So we also don't care about that one. And we don't care about that one. So we also need to switch on name again. This one's to figure out which animation we want. So this is the state name. First will be none. Second will be visible. Third will be active. I think actually this one we don't need. If we have the default. So the default is just to make it hidden. Visible will make it visible. Active will switch on the name so we can figure out which animation we want. I think we need to switch these two around, don't we, on this one? So we'll switch on the name first. Again, it might just be better to set these in a map. Put that army states instead. Go back over here, we need to change these. So we're not dealing with the center army yet. That's the next problem. So now we don't need that. We can just push this all the way over there. Don't need the sequence or the switch. So if it's active, we go over there, start the animation. If it's visible, we set it to visible. And otherwise we set it to not visible. Let's see how well this works. Well, not great. No, I've got some errors. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Might have something to do with it. No, I can't remember which way around it should be now. AE. Yep. 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 Okay. Might have had something to do with it not working properly. Shows up, moves over, should be active, doesn't seem to be, should be active now, nope, okay, I guess we need to know when we set that. Again, because we are setting the animation each time, every frame. That's basically the same problem we had before. We need to make sure that we don't do that. Which means we need to know the states. The only way I can think of doing that is have a widget variable rather than a local function variable. Okay, let's try that then. So the last thing it can do is set the persistent army states to the local one. And then we can find the value in the persistent one. We'll need to set up the defaults here too. Not equal to, so if the value is different, switch on the new value, change it, save it. So we just need to set the defaults here. Otherwise the find will fail and then we'll get stuck. So it's a very, very slow blink, but it works. I think it would be better to speed up the animations too far in the widget itself. Do the green one first, then we can see if this is actually going to make it better. So just making the animation a total of 1 second long instead. Remove that breakpoint now. Oh, wow, that's sad. Don't know what I did to cause it to crash. I think I did save a few of the screens before it crashed though, so it's not all bad. Hopefully haven't lost too much. So that's got the checks in place. That looks about where it was. It's got the default values. Yeah, we don't have that. Oh no, we didn't do it in there anyway. That was in the army. Yeah, so it doesn't look like I have my function in the army that I made. Get player controller. Yep. Okay, so go back over here. I have to just create that. animation again. Pure. Save it this time. See if that. So I think we just have to delete that. Let's fix that variable name. Better. Pick the right level. Okay, the movement doesn't work. Come back to that. Need to make the animation faster, which is what we were doing before. Make sure everything's saved. Back into the designer. So we set it to 1. Okay, so this did save the animation at half speed. Maybe we need to make it even faster. Full half a second. I think it's just uneven. Visible, hidden, visible. Just seems a bit awkward. It doesn't look like it flickers nicely when it's active. Seems a bit random. I don't think we're going into the this one. Ping pong. That might be a problem. So we set the animation once. That's better. It's because I was going ping ponging. I changed that yesterday, or when I was trying to make that animation thing work. Okay, so that's probably about the right speed, to be honest, I think. Let's now so the question is, why don't we remove it? If we move the army there, we need to stop the animation. Problem is, we don't really know which animation we want to stop. Oh, we do. I suppose we can just stop the one for that same colour. That should actually work. Since this is giving us the image, the animation, and the name. Well, we stop the animation. We just need to do it the other way around, I think. Make sure the animation stopped before we hide it. It shouldn't be active now. again, we just need to do this here. Basically, under all circumstances, stop the animation. Even if we haven't started it, it shouldn't matter. That should mean that now it's still animating. Don't know if I clear the active army. I think I should do, because it just stops blinking. If it is valid, then we compare. If it's not valid, it should go over there. Thinking that active army property is not being reset. Yep, okay, so once we move the army, don't think we need to check if it's valid, because we're just saying if it equals. Ooh. And that's why it wasn't erroring when we don't have an active army at the beginning. But what we don't do is when we move an army, we're clearly not resetting that value. Should do it after we finish the move. There we go. So we get all three states, and when the state stops, the flicking stop, the flat blinking stops, and when the state stops, when it moves. Okay, so I think that's everything we need. That's all I'm going to do tonight. A fairly short stream. Of one particular thing. As always, took a bit of time to get to the right solution, but I'm pleased that I've got that process now working. I have to look more about the castles. I think what I'm going to try and do is maybe make it so that I have a button to add and remove castles, because I think that's going to have to be updated too. So I was trying to tie things to the event in the section, but I don't think that's going to work. I think this one we can get rid of. We can just change that now. Just get rid of those. So I don't think they're going to work anyway, because the replication and the creation of the actors and stuff just cause it so much problems. Yeah, so hopefully I'll get a chance to stream again within the next few days. Maybe Monday, if not probably Tuesday. Should be able to do Monday though, so it should be Monday. So yeah, thanks for watching, and that's all for tonight. Thank you very much.